Hey, Sven here. I'm back again with my weekly build log diary from Rocket Routine OS. Week 17 is now behind us, and a whole lot happened this week. We now have various artifacts, as I would call them, that form the foundation of the system. I'll introduce each of them to you in detail in a moment. And the next step is that all of this needs to be connected together. That means there will now be corresponding processes and workflows that make use of these artifacts. Company settings, I already showed those last week. Now they're 100% filled out here, yes. So you can see it here, purpose, vision, mission, then the goals, products and services, the values and the principles, which can now also be visualized by adding images. Then the entire strategy section, strengths, weaknesses, and trends in your own industry, which can later be used excellently for strategy development. The area market, where it's about value proposition and brand promise, the USPs, and then also target markets, like here, for example, target market, then ICP, and the different personas. And you can see this is structured hierarchically here. That means I can also have several of each, and data, that's just the company data that we use here. Yes, then in the structure settings, there's also a new entry, namely the Constitution. The Constitution is basically a set of rules that are used for making decisions. And anyone who knows me knows that I prefer principles over rules because there are always so many exceptions to rules and exceptions to the exceptions. And that's why I'm really into principles. And that's why these are also governance principles here, which can then be used when decisions are made. Then here in the governance section, we've already prepared all the topics related to decisions. There are 4 different types of decision weighting in the system, so to speak. Here it's called impact level, meaning root decisions, trunk, branch, and leaf decisions. So basically, you have to imagine it like a kind of a tree model. That means root decisions are decisions where, for example, we need the shareholders or maybe even external support. Then trunk decisions, as shown here in the example, for instance, the CEO and the vice president of a particular domain. Branch could then be the domain VP, and leaf can be anyone who makes a decision. And when we make decisions, it will also be the case that we have a decision moderator. That is an AI agent, and it can then suggest one of these 7 different decision-making methods, which, based on various parameters, is also very well suited. So you can see here group size, then buy-in, that is how you need to get people on board, the speed of the decision, and the effort involved, yes. And based on these parameters, decisions can then be proposed and put into action. Yes, that brings me to the decisions. There's a menu item here called decisions. Where is it? There. Here, decisions. So, and at the moment, since we're working in this founder mode, decisions are more or less just documented. That means I can enter a new decision note here. Then I describe here the actual decision, say in which area, in which domain this decision is being made. Then these 4 elements, or rather these 4 impact classifications that you can select. And then you can manually select the decision-making method here. And then I say I want to decide by delegation, by consent, and so on. And then it is immediately marked here as approved. And as I said, later on, a proper process will be added here. A very important topic, because it always has a lot to do with context, is knowledge. That is the knowledge we have. This knowledge can be documents, it can be texts. These are the most diverse elements that you can add to the system. And when you add such knowledge items, they have a title and a description. Then you select which domain to which domain they originally belong. Then the type, yes, a document, a template, a checklist, and much more. This can also be expanded. Then maybe a source, the status, yes, such a knowledge document can also be archived at some point. Source of truth, also very important. This is, for example, an element where, as the only source for some knowledge, it is also defined. And then you can mark these documents, or rather these knowledge items, to indicate which domains they are relevant for, because maybe not everyone is actually important for all domains. Yes, those are the knowledge items. Then we have the routines. Routines are regular tasks, just as the name suggests. And there is a standard task called intake scan. The intake scan is basically a source of tasks. So where do tasks come from? These can be, for example, emails, they can be meetings, they can be certain events, like maybe a key figure has been exceeded, or of course, quite classically, manually added items. Yes, and these routines are carried out regularly. And now you can see here, the trigger is, for example, that it is implemented via the cadence, so through, for example, a daily or weekly scan. These are the routines. Then there are the metrics. Here you could also write KPIs, so metrics with which we want to quantify results. That's also where system health is measured, and a standard metric which is built into Rocket Routine OS is included. That is FTT. And specifically, when it comes to quality, our goal is to ensure that everything that is done, every task, every initiative, and so on, ideally succeeds on the first try. And that's why it's called first time through. That means basically it's the percentage of deliverables or tasks that were completed entirely on the first attempt with no rework or corrections needed. And of course, you can also add any KPIs you want here, whether that's revenue, customer satisfaction, or whatever else you can think of. Then there are the outcomes. The outcomes are the concrete results that we want to achieve. Again, here you have a title, a description, and a definition of done. And again, assignment to the domain. What is the time frame and what is the status? And now, of course, you could imagine that such an outcome, if you think in terms of OKRs, could be an objective. Or if you use EOS, then maybe it's a rock that you're defining here. And for each outcome, there are also work items. And the work items, we currently find them here in the control tower. For example, you can see that there are currently 3 work items in the backlog. Here you can see their different statuses. And when I look at such a work item, for example, you can see where it comes from and who is responsible for it. What about the FTT? What else is it linked to? And is there any history for this work item? And when I go ahead and generate a brand new work item entry just like this, I can easily establish a direct connection to this specific outcome right here in the system. That means, for example, this item could represent a specific actionable task that belongs to a key result. Or really, it could be any other type of relevant connection that you might possibly imagine in this context. So that is exactly what has happened throughout this week. You see, we now have 8 or 10 new elements here, and gradually everything is coming together. And by the end of the coming week, week 18, we'll probably see the first complete process of how tasks and initiatives move through Rocket Routine OS. Until then, well, the month is over. That means this week there will also be a newsletter. The new newsletter will be released, and there are also blog posts every week. So check it out at rocketroutinen.com. And if you're interested in trying out Rocket Routine OS yourself, sign up for the waiting list. You can find it on the website rocketroutinen.com. See you next week. Bye.